Fostering connection among employees and company leaders is hard enough to do within brick and mortar walls. Building company culture and forging employee relationships without the four walls is a challenge many companies are failing at. Our guest is an award-winning serial LGBTQ plus entrepreneur who grew up in a small rural town and experienced firsthand that mentors and meaningful connections were critical to assessing career progressing and skills development opportunities. And he solved this problem by building the only all-in-one talent experience platform for inclusive mentoring, employee connectivity, and skills development. Whew, stay tuned for an inspirational fireside chat with an extraordinary entrepreneur on the Startup Life show. Let's glow, everyone. Woohoo! Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And thank you for tuning in for a delicious and inspirational conversation with this award-winning serial LGBTQ plus entrepreneur who discovered a way to help thousands of folks stay inclusively connected and grow their professional careers in person and remotely. If you're watching this delicious conversation via YouTube, hey, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And to receive an alert whenever I post a new show with all the links so you can tune in both via YouTube or your favorite podcast, please join the Startup Life Show meetup group. Right here, there's a QR code. Links are in the show notes. It's easy breezy for you to do that. And for those of you tuning in from the podcast, gosh, it would be great for the follow, for a rating review. Spotify makes it really easy to give a good rating, and any type of review is so helpful to the show. Thank you so much. I am just going to dive right in and introduce you to our phenomenal guest. Let me bring up some artwork while I share his bio with you. It's the one and only Dave Wilkin. He's the co-founder and CEO of 10,000 Coffees, aka 10KC, the only all-in-one talent experience platform for inclusive mentoring, employee connectivity, and skills development. Dave understands that over 80% of learning and career opportunities happen through relationships and mentors. And as hybrid work becomes the norm, right? He reimagined how top organizations like Nike, GE, RBC, and PwC build, scale, and measure their employees' mentoring, connectivity, and skills development programs. And Dave also helps equity-seeking groups leverage 10KC's platform to access critical mentoring and career progressing networks through some of the largest social impact organizations in the world. So important, including ALPFA, Ascend, Black Professionals Tech Network, and more. So let's bring Dave into the room and celebrate him and his entrepreneurship journey. Yay, Dave. Thank you for joining me on the Startup Life Show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, looking forward to diving into all things startup, being a diverse founder.
Oh my gosh.
The road to get here.
Well, everyone is often curious, right, about why someone would ever leave a paycheck behind or benefits behind and dive into something that has no guarantee of success, sometimes no evidence of success, and often facing financial ruin the entire way. And not just your own financial ruin, but anybody who invests in the business. So we're just thrilled to have you here and sharing all your insights from this incredible journey with us today. And so I'd like to dive into, first of all, this is not, what you're working on right now with 10KC is not your first rodeo as an entrepreneur. So I'd like to know what compelled you to even begin this journey with an earlier company. Was there a problem that needed solving? What happened that you said, I'm willing to dive in and make these things happen on my own as the leader and owner of my business?
Yeah, 10KC is truly, it goes back to like my childhood, and it's just so amazing to now see it become, the largest diversity founded mentoring and skills development platform in the world, working with, Nike to J&J to JP Morgan, And it all started being a small town kid. I was this gay kid, grew up in a really small town, and I kind of learned the hard way that, if you don't have relationships, if you don't have networks, you don't get access to the same opportunities. And I saw that in these small towns. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when you say small town, we talking the middle of nowhere, Midwest, Northwest? Where were you?
So I grew up probably 5 hours north of Toronto. I'm Canadian originally. I grew up in a small town called Lively, Ontario. Went to Lively High School, and my parents were these people who, anytime they saw a problem in the community, it's just one of those small communities which I think anyone across the U.S. can relate to, because there's so many different communities all over, where they taught me through firsthand experience that when something wasn't working, it's really on you to fix it. And so whether that was having to fundraise to keep the local church going, or whether that was to keep, an arena or a hockey team, or, they, with their bare hands, dedicated their time to fix problems in the community. And that taught my brother and I what true entrepreneurship is, which is, it's not about money. It's not about, you know, trying to make a big check. It's actually about solving problems to create impact. And it was really that inspiration that I think, without me even knowing it, gave me that entrepreneurial itch.
Oh my gosh. And folks, I've got to stitch that on a pillow moment, right? When something isn't working, it's up to you to fix it. That is a core value that your parents instilled in you that we are all grateful for. And most of us need to do that instead of looking outside and saying, who can we blame for this?
Exactly.
And, it is hard work, folks. And it makes, you have to make a sacrifice when you want to fix a problem, not just for yourself, but for the world. And it can be something very simple within your tiny community in Lively, Ontario, or it can be something in downtown Brooklyn. You can fix these problems because you have to understand you can do hard things. And even with all the pressures that come with being whomever you are in the world, I love this core value. And it really is the common thread, Dave, with every founder I've ever spoken to. They love problems. And even more, they love solving problems, right? It's that genuine, it lights hearts up. Now, so your parents gave you that great representation of how to go out and fix it, but you needed to get out from Lively and go see the world and go do college and all of that. How did you navigate those waters?
Yeah, so it was really tough, right? And I had this incredibly supportive and, community minded family, but I was this like science and math nerd. At the time, I wasn't out, but I knew something. There was something out there that I had to go figure out, and if it wasn't for a scholarship, like a full scholarship to University of Waterloo, I wouldn't have went. And so that was my big break, in a way, was actually through all the different social impact experiences that I started and ran and got involved in, following in my family's footsteps. That got me a full scholarship based on academics and involvement. And
I would say academics and activism.
exactly, yeah. And it was just like it was doing things that could make impact, and that was my big break. So I got a full scholarship. I went to University of Waterloo, which is like a big tech school in Canada. The majority of our graduates start great companies, and I lived in the first ever in the world student residence that was also an incubator. And so it was called Velocity at University of Waterloo, where I was the second class ever to live in it. 70 students living in a dorm, building things and trying to solve problems together. And I mean, now it's not as new of a concept, but Waterloo was the first in the world that had it. And so it just exposed me to some of these incredible, it like got me to drink the Kool-Aid around what entrepreneurship could look like and what it could be. And fast forward, I kind of saw through a number of different experiences that I had through college, whether it was at that incubator, whether it was through co-ops. I ended up being the spokesperson for the government on the future of work. And so I just I think the common thread here for people thinking about starting businesses is like, just go solve problems. Like, just go get involved. You don't have to have this crazy plan that's like all built out, that has all of this like backing. Just go start doing things. And whether it was like this co-op job where I became the spokesperson for the government, talking about the future of work, talking about this really strange concept called mentorship, going to like all these government meetings to talk to CEOs and executives about what mentorship was and what it is and why it matters, what diversity and inclusion is and why it matters, before people really thought it was a real thing. And thank goodness people are starting to realize that now. But it was those experiences kind of adding up that had me see this huge opportunity where if you don't create relationships, you don't create opportunity. And we can like make people study more courses and get overeducated. We can get people to apply for jobs and create these wild resumes and spend all their time on a resume. But 85% of jobs come through relationships. So we can get them to spend all the time they want on a resume, but if they don't have relationships, like, you're not solving the right problem. And that's why we built 10KC, was to be the first platform in the world that actually democratized opportunity. And democratized opportunity is the vision statement that was on the door of our office in 2014 when we built this company. And, you know, funny enough, it still matters today. And we're just getting started.
Oh my gosh, I love the term democratize opportunity, but also, folks, I'm having an Andy-licious moment over, if you don't create relationships, you're not solving the right problems. And you all know that your net worth is your network, right? And that's how you get ahead. So let me just have an Andy-licious moment here. Woo! This is so important. And may I just say how happy I am that you were part of like just being around the vibe of innovation. And folks, you know, the most important thing you can teach yourself, teach your kids, anybody you love, is to experiment, to pull on threads, be the observer, try, and, you know, pretend that you're even in the lab, you know, and just keep experimenting to bring that innovation to life. And I can imagine for you, Dave, given that you have this incredible DNA of who you be, which is this tech and math nerd, right? Who just, his brain just really saw all the dots connecting and wanted to pull in all those stats and data and all of that. At the same time, your heart and soul being about activism and how you can take that and to be around all those people. It's just so good. And I can see how it would have led you to creating a platform that truly democratizes opportunity. And so and I know you had a company that you had launched in 2009, right? And what did you learn from that helped you and prepared you for launching this very powerful platform? Because, folks, this is why you always win when you launch a business. Because, and for those of you who have no plans, just truly understand that when a founder goes out and launches a business, they get skill sets, they tap into things that they never would have found or explored until they launched a business. So, Dave, there you were with your first company. What happened there? What were some of the learnings?
Yeah, like, you just got to get started, right? And I think it's, to your point, there's always like good out of starting businesses. And although I would caveat that to say, as you're potentially going to get your first company going, and I'll talk about mine in a second, I think there's two things you have to really think about and make sure you answer with like an adamant yes. The first is, do I care enough about like, what is the problem that I'm solving? And do I care enough about this problem to dedicate probably 7 to 10 years of my life to it? And if the answer isn't like a hell yes, you should maybe not start that company, because it's going to be really, really tough. And if you don't care enough about it, you won't make it, especially because it does take 7 to 10 years. It's not like a 2-year, all the stuff that we read in the media where someone is like rags to riches in 2 years, not a real thing. Like, you might as well buy a lottery ticket. So that's the first thing. And then I think I'd say that's probably the only one that really matters.
Yeah.
So we Yeah, go ahead.
You're absolutely right, Dave. And I can't emphasize this enough, folks. You just have to be so into that North Star because there are days that are dark journeys of the soul that you don't want to get out of bed. It's hashtag why bother and hashtag what was I thinking? And, but you
Yeah,
know, that problem, you go, you know what? This is so important. And a lot, sometimes that problem in combination with your need to be fully expressed in this specific way, which is forging your own road and solving all the hairy problems that come with managing and leading a startup and acquiring talent and raising the funds and all of that. So you learned that important thing, which is I've got to be able to say hell yeah to the problem and be willing to sit down. And I also want to thank you, Dave, for not glorifying this entrepreneurship journey. Anybody tells you
yeah,
it's an overnight success, yeah, it's a 10-year overnight success.
yeah, yeah. It really is, and I think the second thing that you should like think about is like make sure think about like life is a long road. Your reputation is all you got, and so make in the world of like Elizabeth Holmes and like other things that we're reading, just make sure you're being super ethical, being really thoughtful, and that you're not like damaging. Like, don't risk too much. Like, don't get into credit card debt and spend your mortgage and like I know you people read about those things, but just like don't bury yourself in things that could kind of collapse a lot of your future on your first or second go. Like it's so easy to spend money, it's really hard to make money. And so just make sure that second caveat is like you're being really thoughtful with your reputation and just how you make sure you don't like sink your own personal ship, whether that's through finances or
Mm-hmm.
reputation or relationships. And I think like we are learning some like tough lessons with, funny enough, like Fire Festival to like Elizabeth Holmes. I know those are hilarious references, but we got to learn from those things where, especially for like young entrepreneurs, which, I started my first company when I was like 20. I am really, in a weird way, proud of myself that I always took ethical paths. And trust me, there's a lot of ways to not do that and it's never worth it.
Never worth it.
And
And you'll have VCs, you'll have people encouraging you and going along with you. And
yeah,
or co-founders, well, we'll just do this or we'll just do that. No, no, no. Keep that compass strong. And I'm telling you, you've got one great soundbite after another, Dave. I mean, it's easy to spend money, but it's a lot harder to earn it, getting traction with your business. And we know from my own experience as a .com founder to those in the last 5 years that it was all about the raise. How much did you raise? Oh, I raised 8 million. Oh, I raised 10 million. Of course, we know that was mostly among the white males, given the stats, but still, there was this whole competition about raising the money. Nobody was talking about how much revenue did you bring in this month. Now, that is the real traction. How many customers did you make happy? And you were on your way to profitability and sustainability. That is so important, Dave. And listeners and viewers, I know you're picking up on this about Dave, really high levels of integrity here. And I also want to remind folks, Dave, that integrity is not only being truthful to others, it's being honest with yourself. And you can distract and have hard times. And this brings me to relationships, right, Dave? I mean, in the course of life, we have people who are going to love us no matter what we're up to. We can be working in the backyard, or as long as you're getting up with the baby, who cares that during the day you're building an empire? We have to have important conversations with our loved ones. What are your thoughts about that, Dave?
yeah, like your friends and family, I mean, it's a tough one, right? Because I think that's what you're thinking about, right? Is like your friends and family or loved ones, like what's their role? And I would say here's the complex part of that, right? And I love my parents to death, but your parents really want security.
Right.
So they're actually not solving for the same problems that you might be solving, and they have very different life experiences. And there's all different levels of privilege that you can put into that, right? Like some people have like a nice big trust fund and other people have no money at all, and so
Right.
that changes everything. But I think with loved ones, like you've got to consider their opinion and make sure that you're like setting your family or whatever your situation is, but also know like they're not really incentivized in like to encourage you to be an entrepreneur unless you've got like a lot of privilege, like unless you've got some like
Yeah.
trust fund money kicking around. So you've got to be okay to own that bet and don't expect your family to be like, yes, go take all those risks. Like it's going to be really hard and you have to kind of manage. And that's why like anyone who complains that, a partner should get 50% of what you've got, assuming you've got a good partner, they deserve it
Yeah.
because they are also a part of that ride. And I think about my co-founder and his partner and my partner, and we've been together for 13 years. My co-founder has been together with married 2 kids, and they're like, we couldn't have done it without them.
Oh my gosh.
So it is important.
Yeah, and I wrote a post on Medium, Dave, called When Your Loved One Isn't an Entrepreneur, because you need to have the right conversations with your loved one, but you also need founder peer support. You can't be going to them with all the problems because they want you to be happy. They want you to be safe. And a lot of times watching us founders in action is like watching a train wreck about to happen. And everybody's back there biting their nails going, oh no. When we're in it going, yes, this is it. This is what I signed up for. So, go check out my article. I'll put a link in the comments into the show notes, everyone, so you can go check it out because these conversations are also very important to have. And I love how much you honor your partners, you and your co-founder, because you know what? They're making sacrifices too while you're building. Yes.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. And I think your partner is a key part of it. And you've got to figure out a way to be a good partner because you don't want to light that on fire for a business. But it takes a lot of communication, and they are the unsung heroes of a good entrepreneur.
They sure are. So you made a transition from Redwood Strategic to 10KC, 10,000 coffees. Like, what happened? How did this happen that you were like, okay, I'm feeling called and compelled to launch this new business? Talk a little bit about what that wrapping up of a current business is about, finding your co-founder and getting started with 10KC.
Yeah, like shutting down Redwood was like a part of it, right? Like it served a great purpose, but it wasn't like my dream. Like my dream was to build a true technology company that could solve very important problems. And I started Redwood as in college to help. It was basically a social media technology company where we like worked with different brands and companies to build like early days like Facebook and social media campaigns. And so it was a good hard lesson in sales, like how to sell to big companies. It was like a good early days of like technology, but it was really like I'd say like a hobby business in a way. And we like tried really hard and we did some great work and we won some great awards and we worked with some really talented people, but it was time to kind of shut that chapter down. And it was a great chapter. But then when Elliot, my co-founder, and I pivoted and started 10KC or 10KC Technologies, it was a chance to actually build something that could like be $1 billion company. And I say $1 billion company in that it's solving a really, really big problem. And
It
and
is a
I
real
think,
big, hairy problem. I mean, anybody who's
yeah,
taking on a platform like that has to have the deep technology or know how to hire incredible technology folks, CTOs, et cetera, to build this platform, be very clear about what the mission is and the longevity that you're going to need, because building something and talk about how you came out with your MVP, how you figured that initial part out.
yeah, it was I still remember like the day we came up with the concept of 10,000 coffees, which we're moving to 10KC, which we can talk about. But it, we kept trying to iterate around the problem first, which was 85% of opportunities happen through relationships, yet, and that could be like learning opportunities. It could be career opportunities, but the majority of opportunities happen through relationships, mentors, sponsors, coaches, buddies, peers, groups, one-on-one. Yet all of that was being left to serendipity, really manual processes, nepotism. Really, it's just like wasn't done well. And unless you were like this bright and shiny extrovert, you're kind of screwed on that side of the equation. And we kept iterating around that, and we thought there's this huge opportunity where leaders know this. Like most leaders would adamantly agree that that was the most impactful way to create culture, learning, but they don't have a systematic way to deploy it. And how it's happening on its own is through coffees. Like, let's go for a coffee. Let's go do that. And that's actually how people learn. And so we thought, what is the quantitative measure of learning or an expert? The best thing we could find was Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours.
Nice.
10,000 hours make an expert. So we were like, what would happen if we could create a technology platform just as an experiment that would connect 10,000 leaders with 10,000 of tomorrow's leaders over 10,000 coffees? Could we test the concept, build a technology, create a product that would democratize access to these relationships using the best in class online dating matching technology to match people by skills, not based on who their parents are? That's who gets these opportunities today. But instead, let's use technology to level the playing field and make better matches. Combine that with learning technology, because not everyone knows how to be a mentor or how to build a relationship. So, Andy, if you and I get paired together, that's great, but that's step one. Step two is, how do we guide each other through?
Right. What's the roadmap?
What's the roadmap? And so we started as a social experiment in 2014. We called it 10,000 Coffees to help just see if we could connect 10,000 leaders with 10,000 of tomorrow's leaders over 10,000 coffees to build the mousetrap, to build an MVP that could match, that could remove bias, that could create learning opportunities. And we launched it with 300 executives. So CEOs of McDonald's, of Samsung. And then it blew up, this like social experiment. We started to like see the algorithm, how to remove bias, how to use machine learning.
What do you mean it blew up? What does that look like?
I mean, we did 10,000 coffees in like a matter of months. And we just saw these really great matches. And, there was like one of the stories I'll always remember is on our website, it said 10,000 coffees to create life-changing opportunities. And when we wrote that, everyone's like, come on, that's a bit of embellishment, like not life-changing. And I was like, I think so, let's keep it. And 3 months after, maybe like 2 months after launch, I got a call from one of the most senior partners at PwC who was using the product, was going to do like 3 or 4 mentoring chats. And they left me a voicemail, said, call me immediately. I just finished my coffee. And we're like, oh shoot, like, was it like a stalker, or like what happened here? Because we were trying to figure out.
Are you wearing the coffee?
Are you wearing the coffee? Like, who'd you meet? And they're like, we hired this person immediately. They've been applying to the firm, but the resume screeners and the recruiting processes, they didn't go to the right college. And so they just get screened out. But this person actually was incredible. The coffee connected. They've now been with a recruiter. They're now hired full time. We never would have found this person. I was like, okay, so it is life-changing. Like, these experiences are life-changing. Let's keep it on the website. And it was those experiences, it's like the success stories that we saw from our end users that said, holy shit, like, we've got something here. And now we need to figure out a revenue model, because we had like a team of like 10 people. We loved the purpose. We had like some corporate sponsors kind of like sponsoring different things to keep the lights on, but we didn't have a long-term path. And that's when we had to figure out the revenue model.
Oh my gosh. And what I'm loving about the model itself is that it feels like you have removed HR from the equation. And that can always be like a gatekeeper roadblock, and with so many reasons to be handcuffed to regulations, et cetera, versus nurturing a really good connection.
Well, that's like an interesting segue, right, to the revenue model, because HR people start to call us and say, can you help us? I'm like a single HR person. I've got 2,000 employees. on the capital
Too
markets
much. Yeah,
team,
they're always
and I'm in
inundated.
charge of
Yeah.
helping them find mentors. How am I ever supposed to be successful, let alone making sure payroll's on time? They have a million hats, and they're trying to create inclusive cultures. They're trying to create career paths for people. And so they started to call us and say, can you help us with this technology to help me at this bank or this consumer packaged goods company? And we're like, okay, well, how much would you pay us? And these inbound requests kept coming in, and that's why it's so important to like launch a minimal viable product and then listen and watch and talk to users. You know, you heard the Airbnb founders; they were like going to the Airbnbs.
Yeah.
For my co-founder and I, we were talking to everybody about what it was like, and so these people kept from companies were like, "We'd love to use this at our company." And we're like, "Okay, cool idea. How much will you pay us?" And then we got 3 companies that all wanted to pay us, and we said, "Okay, well, will you pay us now? And it'll be ready in 6 months." And you can't really tell us what the product's going to look like, but it will solve the problem that you're bringing up, which is matching people inside companies for career conversations. And they signed scopes of work,
Oh my
and
gosh. First of all, Dave,
that's how it started.
how did you and Elliot, your co-founder,
Yep.
how did you guys know to ask that kind of a question? Oh, like,
Elliot and I are just like are just like that. Like
yes.
him and I are like, truly, co-founders go through a lot of things. We could not be more different, but him and I just like really challenge each other, and we go into these conversations, and we're just both
Gosh.
pretty curious people uh to kind of like ask those questions. So like I would pick up the phone and call them, and Elliot was like, ask them how much they would pay for it, and you know what, if
And
they'll
would they
pay
be
for
willing
it,
to wait
we'll
6
build
months?
it.
Who
Yeah.
does that though? Folks, you just always have to remember the answer is always no unless you ask. And you two, come on, I want to come over there and give you both big hugs for having the
Yeah,
courage to just put it out there because you had nothing left to lose. You needed
exactly.
revenue. Would they be willing to partner? Would they be part of the beta part of your journey? And would they be
Yeah.
okay with, we'll figure it out and you'll be happy with the results. Don't worry. And we'll see you in 6 months. Were you able to deliver within 6 months, Dave?
Yeah, they're still clients today. So
Oh,
funny enough those were our first enterprise customers. They wasn't really the best product, but they say if you're not embarrassed of what you shipped a few
right.
years ago, you're not shipping fast enough, and you're not like releasing things, and you're holding on for too long. And so they're still customers today. They're now like, one of them is a major bank, and we're in over 10 countries. About 40,000 of their employees actively use 10KC for mentoring, onboarding, networks, and it's just really working closely with your clients to ship and just focus on the right, like the problem you're solving with your clients, rather than saying here's the feature sets, because the feature sets are going to come and go, but
Right.
the problems are really what they have to be aligned on, so that you can make sure that your roadmap isn't compromised by your
Right.
clients.
And founders, you cannot hear that too many times. Okay. And we're chatting with Dave Wilkin, an award-winning serial LGBTQ plus entrepreneur and co-founder of 10KC, a platform that is rocking it clearly for creating inclusive connections and helping folks move forward in their career and also give back, for and pay forward in their career as well. And Dave, honestly, just this is something that founders again can never hear too much of, which is always be about solving the problem. Your features and benefits are just the nice accessories that your product is wearing, but that you're solving that problem is really what makes your customers not only their hearts sing but keep returning, right, Dave?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so how did you fund all of this? We talk a lot about funding here in the Startup Life Show because we're always chatting with diverse founders who get 2% or less of any venture capital, and it's worse than private equity, folks. How, did you and Elliot get funded? And I know you're coming from a place of privilege, but still you are in the LGBTQ plus community, and that can always turn many investors off. What was your fundraising like?
Yeah, I think, it's like acknowledging the fact that, I'm still a white male, and so I come with a ton of privilege, but at the same time, you can still get fired in places for being gay. So
All right.
it is just, it's not just discrimination, it's actually like job security that can be at risk for anyone
Well,
who
And your customers
is
are
out.
in what we call the red states that, or even if they were in Florida right now, it'd be like, woo, Disney. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
so how did you guys get the capital you needed? And tell us a little bit about finding aligned investors for your baby.
Yeah. So we actually bootstrapped the company. And so our path to where we're at, I mean, we bootstrapped up until a year ago. But we worked with the clients to solve problems, and we kept them really close to like ship things in 6 months. And so we kind of like validated our roadmap with
Yeah.
our clients, and that allowed us to create this like bootstrapping flywheel where you can work with the right clients, and you want enough that it's not just like one-offs to say, hey, here's the and it takes a really close relationship between the technical and non-technical co-founders, because Elliot and I had to be like super aligned about what we were selling and what we could deliver on, and it had to be ready in 6 months. But not too much, not too little. And by doing that, you're actually selling in advance of investing, because it's a really tough choreography to get, because you can't make a mistake, otherwise you're bankrupt. But if you can get it right, you can actually not have to go to VCs, and you can, and thank goodness we didn't, because it did, product market fit really didn't happen until recent. Like we spent a lot of years trying to iterate, and all this stuff sounds like it was such a walk in the park. And like we failed and failed and failed for so many years that if we had VCs, I think they would have like threw us in the ditch.
Well, they would never have
So
given you the
fortunately,
money probably because you didn't have that product market fit yet.
yeah, like we could have got like a pre-seed or a seed where
Yeah.
you don't really need anything, but then if you don't get traction right away, which like the market took a while to get to a place where it was ready, and so I'm glad we bootstrapped. I mean,
Yeah, I'm really glad you.
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, but and this is such a great lesson for anyone listening and tuning in who are considering launching a business or trying to understand this entrepreneurial landscape. This venture capital, private equity funding gets talked about a lot. You see it in the news and everywhere online. But the reality is you get a very short runway to get off the ground when you take capital from outside sources.
Yeah,
What Dave and Elliot did was the beauty of, and of course, I love this bootstrapping flywheel, is that now they're getting customers to pay them along the way. They're living a skinny life, as far as, uh, benefits to themselves in salary, et
yeah.
cetera. But you get much longer to really create a phenomenal product. Plus, you get to increase the valuation of your business so that if you do need to get, when you're ready to get from like 50 million a year to go up to that $1 billion valuation, you may have to bring in some money, but boy, you're not going to be giving much equity away, right, Dave?
Exactly. And I think it's, equity, there's always a case to give equity away because it creates the pie. Like it makes a bigger pie. It should. Otherwise, don't do it. But for us, we just saw that we could really control the destiny of the product and the problem in a time where I don't think the market understood what mentoring, what diversity and inclusion, like what those important topics are. And so bootstrapping for us made a lot of sense. And we kind of like carefully monitored and managed that, and kept iterating and kept growing the business. And then it was really like it was about a year ago, early 2022, where the market really became clear. The opportunity was huge, and finally clients and customers were recognizing mentorship, networking, skills development as a core element of their software stacks.
Yeah.
Right, where in every company, if they don't have mentoring, networking, and skills development platforms, they're not going to keep the best talent. They will not be able to meet their diversity and inclusion commitments. And so companies now need to have this in their tech stack, which was kind of like the big change for us, where we started to talk to investors. And so we did, in early 2022, started to just take some calls.
Yeah.
And that was a whole other journey, right? Of going from bootstrap to closing a 56 million investment in June of last year.
Oh my gosh, I got the clappers out, everybody. 56 million. That is how you're going to reach your big goal. You proved how you could scale. You figured out and found and took your time to find the scalability pathway. That's not always easy. It's never really obvious until you get far enough along. You go, okay, we've always had the vision of a billion-dollar corporation. Now we know how to get there, but we cannot do it on Bootstrap. We're going to need some funding. And I think that's terrific,
Yeah,
Dave.
exactly.
So
Yeah, and I think it's, it was not like it was a really important decision because we were looking at all paths, right? So we had like venture capitalists, we had family offices, we had private equity, and we had growth equity. And I think it's important for founders to really not think one dimensionally around where to get money. And we had to have like a dating phase almost with these investors to consider which path to take. And so we just started to like date and talk to VCs and PE, and it's really different. Like they're different pathways, and we saw, and happy to like go into kind of how to evaluate the difference between all of those. We ended up going with growth equity, which is like a hybrid between PE, private equity, and venture. And we couldn't be more happy with that path. It was the right move. And I think now, given the state of the world requiring like efficiency, and like you can't just like burn cash on fire and hope that somebody will value your company, I think it's really important for more founders to consider those alternatives to venture.
This is so important. And I love your long deep dive because we had phenomenal guests on the show almost a year ago. They're the founders of Clue, getclue.com. And they are out of the UK, and they've only set it up for the UK, but it is almost like a dating app for the neurodivergent folks who often get left off of any hiring because they just don't fit in, yet they've got extraordinary skill sets, but they often get filtered out. How is 10KC addressing this population that is so important and deserves to soar, but often get discounted because they think differently? And that's a form of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that isn't often talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of invisible barriers that people face, whether it's like mental health challenges, whether it's neurodiversity. Those things are different, but you have to look at all those different barriers that exist in your community or inside your organization. And I think like what it always goes back to, right, is that 85% of opportunity happens through relationships. And so if you think about the neurodivergent community, and we've actually launched neurodiversity modules at 10KC to help create mentoring and networking for neurodivergent communities, among many others, right? So whether it's BIPOC sponsorship, mentoring. So one of 10KC's element is we work with authors and PhDs to build incredible solutions that companies can build and deploy to help all different types of relationships exist. And neurodiversity communities, knowing that that's kind of the community that you had brought up, it is kind of a huge next chapter for corporate, because
really is.
For the longest time, people had to mask and hide that, and rather than making it a strength, and
instead of celebrating
it and getting them in the right settings and helping be able to make them, don't like find the right accommodations that allow them to bring the brilliant elements of themselves to their work every day. And what I would go back to is, when you think about 85% of opportunity happening through relationships, it's an extrovert's world, and it's a white male extrovert's world. And so just from a gender perspective, what's shocking is men are 12 times more likely to hesitate to meet with a female colleague than a male colleague. That's just gender. Now add in any other complexity, add in neurodiversity, add in visible minorities. The ability to access these relationships to get that opportunity is just not equal, and is kind of a massively biased cluster of issues.
It sure
So
is. And as listeners and
that's the
viewers
problem.
know, I went to an all women's MBA program and it was delicious because we didn't have the bias in the classroom. And the reality, Dave, is that in the lizard brain, we have thousands of years of indoctrination. So even the most evolved white male is still facing the lizard brain's indoctrination that says women are not risk takers, women can't be trusted, people of color can't be trusted, gay people can't be trusted. All of this, they're weak, they're wrong, they're whatever. And that is
Yeah.
just going to take time to evolve as humans. And we need to, have policies and opportunities like 10KC to help us do better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the next frontier of
Yeah.
talent and learning technology will be focused on where the majority of opportunity is extracted, which is relationships, mentoring, sponsorship, coaching. And I think we can make everyone take a course or study, get more
Right.
education, but really where the rubber hits the road with learning and opportunities actually through relationships, and the data's there. But companies, colleges, community organizations have never had the technology to solve that component of
Right.
learning and opportunity, which is what we're working our tails off to try to solve.
And it's so important. I mean, we know just from the numbers that LinkedIn provides, the high turnover rate, people getting hired and not even having the skill sets for which they applied, which means the decisions were based on some pedigree degree or some other factors that had nothing to do with the qualifications of the jobs. So having this 85% of opportunities from relationships, I don't know if I got that right, Dave, but anyway, that's a key value that drives your company.
Yeah, exactly. And it drives every company in the world, is that
Yeah.
relationships are what make them innovative and which create culture. But the problem is everyone's talking about how important that is at organizations and companies, but they're not actually enabling it, scaling it, measuring it, fostering it. And that's what they'll need to figure out to make sure they create the right innovation, that they create and keep the right talent.
And I'm thinking about, the introverts whom we all know and love, right? And as they often say, if I never talk to another person, that would be okay. But it's so important to get them out and to have the right conversations and ask the right questions. And nothing is more annoying to an introvert than someone like me who can start a conversation over the cracker section in a in a grocery store. I don't need anything to help me have a conversation. So what you're doing at 10KC is so valuable and really taking the sting out of the companies, right? And really helping them. So no wonder it's such a big hit. I'm so happy with all the success you're having. Let's talk about what success looks like for you, for Elliot, for 10KC, and also how you're measuring it, because so often, especially growing companies like yours, get sort of pinned into a category of, well, you're going to be a unicorn, or in your case a zebra, right? Because you're a social impact. You've got to be this or you've got to be that, and that's what success looks like. What's it like for you?
Yeah, so every January I map out success. I look at it across. I take a pretty your time is all you got. So
Right.
what I would encourage people to do is to choose 5 areas of their life that are important. So for me, it's like physical health, mental health, my career, so like 10KC, my relationship. And then under that, I look at what are the habits that will make that successful. What can I do daily, weekly, or monthly across those categories? And I actually like measure myself on that, because if you don't hold yourself accountable to it'll go sideways and your time will just disappear. And so I purposely share that, where it's not just about company success. I think that's really important, but for entrepreneurs and founders, like, you've got to think about your entire basket of the things that matter to you. And there'll be some years, and I think for me there was many years where my career was probably 70% of my basket. The other 4 categories made up that very small percentage, and that was just a deliberate decision that I made. But every year that I reevaluated, and you just have to figure out how you're going to invest in all elements of your life.
I think that's so important, Dave, especially given the toxic hustle culture, which I've been talking about since 1998, which is that you've got to go at full speed and anybody who isn't part of the solution needs to get out of the way. That does not serve you, folks. That's white supremacy. That's unfettered capitalism turning you into a servant for your company and the people around you. And that doesn't help you. Let that modality go. Let that paradigm go. Dave, how has entrepreneurship served you? I mean, as you look back over this journey from the beginning where your parents planted the seed, if there's a problem, you need to step up and fix it and find a solution. It's up to you to where you are today. Please share with everyone how entrepreneurship has served you, not only personally, but professionally.
I mean, it's a privilege to get to build a career around problems that really matter. And I think it's like entrepreneurship is like, I actually would consider it like a noble task because we need it, but it's probably like the hardest possible career path for anybody. Like you really can sacrifice a lot to try to make things happen. But for me, it's created family. Like the people I work with that I've worked with for many years are my, best friends. And I'll work with them for the rest of my life. I think it's also helped me grow nonstop. But I think most importantly is we've created millions and millions of these mentorship experiences and networking experiences that have like changed lives. And that's the most important thing for me is that how do we democratize opportunity and create as many of these experiences as possible? And that is like that's what keeps me going.
Excellent. Dave, thank you for joining me on the show. Thank you for sharing your brilliance, your insights, etc. I'm going to make sure everybody follows you everywhere you glow and connects and helps build 10KC to where it's going to be going. We're going to be following you closely. It's going to be so exciting to watch you and Elliot and the rest of the team soar.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, and you're looking forward to staying in touch.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm going to pop you into the green room. Oh my gosh, we learned so much from Dave. Bye, Dave. And from his incredible experience today. And I'm just so grateful that he chose to share his time with us because it's an amazing journey, this entrepreneurial journey. And we get this glorification that the media and Hollywood and other folks like to portray, but it really is a calling. I think Dave summed that up beautifully. And it's fun, like to have a window in, right? To figure out how did this person and why did they leave a paycheck and benefits behind to go do something that looks from the outside so harrowing and nail biting and gray hair and wrinkle producing, but there's more to it. And I think what Dave started off the show with, just saying you've got to be in love with the problem that you're solving to get you through those tough days, because the wins are really extraordinary. And if you've ever done something in your life that you had to work hard at, right, and you got to the other side and it felt so good, that's entrepreneurship, only it's probably like every hour. And every day. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning into this show. I'm so happy you were here to meet Dave. And remember to hop on over to the Startup Life Show meetup group so you get an alert whenever I've posted a new show and all the links that you need to tune in, whether it's through podcast or on the video. And for those of you who are still here listening, I'm so grateful for your time and presence. And let us know in the comments what you think about this incredible conversation and founder and his journey and how he's serving the world with 10KC. In the meantime, I'm waving to you from Boston. Yay! And blowing you kisses. And wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to say hi on social. Cheers, everyone.